What is a disciple? If you ask around, you may find a lot of different answers, but how does Jesus define what a disciple is? This video is the first session in our series, What is a Disciple?, where we will explore what Jesus says it means to be a disciple. We'll do this using a simple framework for understanding discipleship. Welcome. I'm Pastor Trey from Project 242, a church that's committed to equipping you to be a disciple who makes disciples. Our mission is to connect the disconnected to a growing and multiplying relationship with Jesus Christ and one another. And these videos are one of the various ways that we are equipping you to be a disciple-making disciple. So, what is a disciple? In the most simple of terms, a disciple is a follower of the teachings of another. And so, a disciple of Jesus is a person who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. But if you hang out with me long enough, you'll hear me say, you got to put the why before the what. You got to put the why before the what. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what a disciple is, we need to ask the question, why do we make disciples? Simply put, it's because the final instructions of Jesus, whose teachings we follow as his disciples, he tells us that we're supposed to make more disciples. Jesus' final words to his first disciples were, "Go therefore and make disciples of all people, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." This is what we call the Great Commission. Or in other words, this is the reason that the church exists and is the ultimate why behind everything we do. It's our mission to make disciples of all people, regardless of their race, gender, or socioeconomic status. All people means all people. And a lot of times when we talk about the mission of the church, we place the emphasis on the word go. And so what pops into our minds is sending missionaries off to foreign lands. And this is definitely one part of fulfilling the mission, and it's a very important part. But here's the thing. Go is not the main verb of Jesus' instructions to us. In fact, go isn't even a command. The command that Jesus gives to his disciples is to make more disciples. This is the great why before the what. And then Jesus tells us how to make disciples, and we do it by means of baptism and by teaching what Jesus commanded. Or in other words, teaching people how to follow the teachings of Jesus. And here at Project 242, this is what we mean when we say that we exist to connect the disconnected to a growing and multiplying relationship with Jesus Christ and one another. You see, making disciples through baptizing and teaching is why we exist. This is Jesus' plan A, and Jesus doesn't have a plan B. So now that we know the why behind the what of making disciples, let's take a look at what a disciple actually is. Simply put, a disciple is someone who is dedicated to learning and following the teaching of another. People can be disciples of all kinds of things, but we're specifically talking about what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. And you'd be amazed at how many different definitions there are of what a disciple is. But the best one that I found comes from Jesus. And it's found in Mark 1:17 when Jesus calls his first disciples, Simon Peter and his brother Andrew. Jesus saw the brothers fishing on the Sea of Galilee, and he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you to become fishers of people." The way I see it, this invitation to the disciples was the definition of a disciple as Jesus saw it. It's a simple verse, and you may even have it memorized. And while there are other places in the Bible where we can turn to define what it means to be a disciple, what I like about this simple verse is that it serves as an outline or a framework. While it doesn't say everything that needs to be said about being a disciple, it's broad enough and simple enough to be supported by other scriptures in the Bible that show what the life of a maturing disciple looks like. And if we use this verse as a framework for understanding discipleship, then we find that there are three important components of a disciple. And this video is just going to be a quick introduction to this framework. So after this video is over, I invite you to watch the follow-up videos that explore each of the three components in more detail. And so the first component of a disciple is that a disciple is a person who follows Jesus. Jesus starts by saying, "Follow me." And these first two words of Jesus are a simple invitation. A disciple of Jesus must follow Jesus. It's really that simple. Jesus leads and we follow. Following Jesus means that we recognize and accept who Jesus is as the Lord, the leader, and the master of our lives. Jesus is the one who initiates and guides, and in turn, we respond to his leadership and direction. Following Jesus means acknowledging that Jesus is in front and we must place ourselves behind him. So a disciple of Jesus is a person who follows Jesus. Second, a disciple of Jesus is a person who is being changed or transformed by Jesus. This is found in the words, "and I will make you to become." These 7 words speak of a process of transformation. This tells us that discipleship involves Jesus molding and transforming our hearts and lives to become more like his. Jesus first invites us to follow him, and then he says that he will make us into fishers of people. It's Jesus who does the making, it's Jesus who does the changing, and it's Jesus who does the transforming. Just like it was Jesus who did the suffering, and it was Jesus who did the dying, and it was Jesus who paid the price for all of our sin. And so it's Jesus who makes, changes, and transforms us into his disciples. And it's not an instantaneous thing, but rather this change is a process where Jesus transforms our hearts and lives to be more like his, and this process continues on for the rest of our lives. And the thing about this process is that it can get messy. It can get messy because we're still gonna mess things up from time to time. And if we look at the disciples of Jesus in the Bible, we see that they messed up a lot. They weren't spiritual giants. They were just regular guys with the same selfish, sinful struggles that we all have. You see, Jesus didn't choose them to be his followers because they were anything special. Jesus chose them because he knew what they could become. But when we do mess up, when we fail to follow Jesus, we have to remember that it was Jesus who chose us in the first place. It was Jesus who invited us to follow him long before any change was ever made in our lives. And so, a disciple is a person who is following Jesus and being changed or transformed by Jesus. And the third component of a disciple is that a disciple is a person who is committed to the mission of Jesus. The last 3 words in this verse, fishers of people, indicate a purpose, a mission, a response of action, something that affects what we live for and what we do. It's the why that drives everything else. We've already talked about it a little bit. Now, fishers of people is the way that Jesus described the first disciples' role in the Great Commission that he would give to them later on. And this was Jesus' way of putting it into their context as professional fishermen. You see, for their entire lives, Peter and Andrew had been fishers of fish. Fishing was all they knew. They would throw a net in the water, wait a little while, and then haul out fish to sell at the market. Now Jesus was going to change all that. From now on, they were going to fish for people instead. You see, Jesus was giving them a new purpose, to live out his purpose by helping in God's work to connect the disconnected, to saving faith in Jesus Christ, by helping in God's work to make more disciples. And if you're a disciple of Jesus, then you were saved for this purpose too. This means that we join Jesus on his mission to love and reach a lost and hurting world. We join Jesus to connect the disconnected. We join Jesus as his disciples to make more disciples. And we can do it boldly because it's Jesus' mission, not ours. We're simply joining Jesus on his mission. So to put all 3 pieces together, we see that a disciple is a person who is following Jesus, is being transformed by Jesus, and is committed to the mission of Jesus to make more disciples. And now that we're familiar with the framework, I invite you to watch the follow-up videos where we'll explore each of these 3 components in more detail. And as always, Project 242 is a place where it's okay to have questions. So if you have any questions about today's session, about faith, or how to get involved, I invite you to connect with your microchurch leader. And if you're looking for a place to get connected, contact us through our website, project242church.com, and we'll help you to get connected to a microchurch. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next session. God bless.